I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
Welcome to our newest podcast here at Total Apex Media, the Limitless Range NBA podcast. I am your host, Brandon Ellis, as you have known me on several other podcasts here at Total Apex Media on YouTube. I got my co-host, Jacob Perrine, with me as well. He's my co-host here at the NBA Limitless Range NBA podcast here. And I got a special guest this week in Shane Foley. He also knows his NBA. He writes for fantasy mainly. Say what's up, fellas.
What's good? Let's pop it off, man. Ready to get this going.
Wild stuff in the NBA.
Yes.
Can't wait.
Yes.
Wow, for sure.
Wild
for sure.
stuff.
We got plenty to talk about.
Plenty to talk about. Starting with some breaking news. Shout out to Justin Rippey, our sports.
Oh, already lagging.
He is on the Wembanyama piece right now. Wembanyama, he just published it. So tune into Total Apex Sports for more information on this. But Victor Wembanyama has won the Defensive Player of the Year award for the first time ever as a unanimous Defensive Player of the Year. Jacob, I'm going to start with you on this. Your thoughts on Wembanyama winning Defensive Player of the Year?
Well, it's not surprising, and it's a long time coming. And I think he should be a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year at this point, but obviously injuries his previous 2 seasons before this really hindered his ability because he didn't meet the 65-game threshold for it. But now he's the first ever unanimous, and I think it's probably the most deserved award in a very long time because there's no better defensive player in the game right now, maybe even all time, than Wemby right now. Now, he has the potential for it, but I think he's well on that path. And when you look at the numbers he put up this season, and he only played 29 minutes a game, so what he was able to do in that limited time frame. So when you look at the on-off numbers, I'm going to throw some numbers at you. So when he was on the court, the Spurs had the top defensive rating in the league at 105. And when he was off the court, they had a 117 defensive rating. They had a 12-point difference in that department. Now, for those unsure, the worst team defensive rating-wise was the Washington Wizards at 121. So they were in that ballpark without him on the court. Jeez. So, I mean, it's deserved. He led the league in blocks. He led the league in individual defensive rating. Every defensive metric you can think of, he was leading in it. So it's a very deserved award.
It is for sure. Shane, go ahead with your quick thoughts on Wembanyama winning unanimous Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, looking at the other awards, I feel like probably every other award has like the finalists are much closer together as opposed to the finalist award for this award. Like, as great of a season as Asar Thompson, and I think Chet was the other finalist. Like, Wembanyama was probably the most like solid, I think, for this. I'll just say, like, I remember like watching. I want to say like Spurs versus Clippers a couple weeks ago, and like some guy was it might have been Kawhi. He's like driving to the hole, and Victor let him drive to the hole, go past him because he had enough length to just like reach behind him and stuff his layup attempt.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So like, there's a reason why it's unanimous. I couldn't think of an argument for anyone other than Wemby.
Yeah, 100%. So I have the breakdown of the votes from NBA Communications here. So Wemby got all 100 first place votes. So as the unanimous Defensive Player of the Year, Chet finished second with 76 second place votes and 11 third place votes. And Asar Thompson from the Detroit Pistons had 9 second place votes and 33 third place votes to get third. So and then no one else other than Gobert was fourth with 29 third place votes and 4 second place votes. So like second place votes was like split. Kind of, but it was like mainly Chet was getting all the second place votes as well. So it was like
and then the third place votes were kind of spread evenly from what it was like,
So when you look at that, I mean, obviously Wemby was going to win the award when you first saw the finalists being named, like Chet and Asar Thompson and then Wembanyama. Like it's obviously was going to be Wemby's award to win at that point. Once you saw that, but it was whether or not it was going to be unanimous and someone was going to, or it was someone was going to stand out and ruin that. I'm glad no one stood out and gifted it someone else the first place vote.
No.
Even though Chet was like, I'll make an argument for Chet. Chet has been like a consistent guy for the last few years, protecting the win for Oklahoma City, but he's not a Wembanyama.
No.
In regards to that, so Wembanyama,
especially when it comes to the defensive metrics and impact, it's like it's not even close.
It's not even close. So with that being said, I think we all gave praise and good thoughts on that. Let's get into some of the other awards finalists, starting with MVP. MVP is going to be a debate the rest of this year, or and it's going to be a debate all the way up. The three finalists are Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the Thunder, the reigning MVP, Nikola Jokic from the Nuggets, and Wemby is the third finalist of the MVP award. There's been the controversy of Luka not making the finalists. He might be fourth on that. But Shane, I'll start with you there. Your thoughts on the MVP as a whole right now?
I saw this video. I forget the YouTube creator, but the title of it was basically like the MVP this year doesn't matter, and it's not like dissing whoever wins the award. It's just that like all of them are so deserving that it's really hard to nitpick and figure out who's the best one. And on that video, he thought that Luka was going to be a finalist as well. Yeah, and a lot of people think that lack of defense disqualifies Luka, but if you take that off, it's almost like, why are you not considering him? I think the race is very interesting, and it's like every player has a strong case, but like for different reasons. Like, if you just value scoring, Luka might be your guy. If you value all around, Nikola, if you argue I feel entire package with like clutch involved, you might go for Shai. And then obviously like if you include defense, like you might prefer Victor. There's a reason to pick it, either one of them. As for who I would pick, like I really, it's impossible because they're gonna pick them on Friday. But I wish I could just watch, see if the Nuggets beat the Timberwolves, and then they play the Thunder, and I'll be like, whoever wins that series or plays better, I'd pick them. But that's not the case. We have to base it on the regular season, and I mean, I really part of me is kind of rooting for Jokic, because I feel like he I think people joke about like, oh, he's a triple-double guy. Oh, yeah, he's going to get these assists easy. He's going to get his triple-double, whatever. Isn't that incredibly hard to do? You know what I mean?
Incredibly hard to do as a big man. Yeah,
exactly.
Especially when you don't have the ball in your hand that much, and he led the league in assists as a big boy. So it was incredible.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like, I will not be angry whoever gets it. They give it to Shai, they give it to Victor, fine. But I just feel like having the triple-double thing being what you rest on, and being clutch himself, being a triple threat scorer, he scores from anywhere. And like with the assists, you're giving it to someone else, and they have to hit the shot. So like, it might be Jokic for me, but again, like if you. The case for SGA, sure. The case for Victor, sure. It's like,
Well, it's like asking who your favorite kid is.
Yeah,
It's one of
pretty
those where
much
you
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
for the MVP debate this year, that's what it feels like because you have so many worthy candidates. And personally, I would like to see Jokic win it because I want to see him collect his fourth MVP. I think, he's been really close to getting it the last few years, getting that, coveted fourth. So I think he has done more than enough to deserve it, especially with the way the Nuggets played towards the end of the year after he came back. And so I think in that aspect, I just think the reason I do think Luka was kind of left out of this conversation wasn't so much about the defensive part. I think some of it more was the midseason struggles of the Lakers, and then they sort of, when you look at the roster, he had another All-Star and LeBron on the roster, whereas Wemby didn't have one. Jokic had one, but he also missed a month and came back, and they both didn't really play a lot together.
Right.
And then Shea is just Shea. He's got his team won the most games, so obviously he's going to be in the discussion for it.
Yeah.
So I just feel like I would lean Jokic, but everybody's an MVP winner in my book this year for MVP. I feel like you could literally take a piece off of the award, give it to somebody else, and be like, okay, yeah, he got MVP too. So I wouldn't mind. I don't mind that. Or like a co-MVP, like we were talking like a couple weeks ago, Brandon, where we were just
with the rookie of the year.
Rookie of the year, co-rookie of the year. So
which I forgot to mention the finalists for the rookie of the year pre-show, which was VJ, Cooper Flag, and Concanapple. So that was the most predictable rookie of the year. We'll get into that in a second here. I'll introduce that again here in a second. With my thoughts on MVP, I think it should be Wemby. The narrative of the Spurs where they were probably trying to make the ascension to the play-in, maybe the 6th seed at most. But the fact that they're the 2 seed in the Western Conference right now because of Wembanyama's ascension, along with like a couple others like Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper, how they Castle's ascension to his second in his sophomore year and Dylan Harper in his rookie year, and along with De'Aaron Fox, like I felt like that team was going to be great, but I didn't think they were going to be the 2 seed in the Western Conference. Props to Wembanyama for that. And so that's why I would lean Wembanyama if I had a vote. I do like what Shea has done, and he's been the most efficient scorer in the last
consistent.
The last few years, especially the last couple years. And the Thunder are the best team, so I wouldn't be mad if he won it. I wouldn't be mad at Jokic either, based on what you guys have said. Everything like that, especially when he was out at the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the new year. When the calendar turned to 2026, when the Jokic was out for that many games, Denver was kind of middle of the road, and then when the Jokic came back, they kind of let back into the 3 seed because of his play. So that's where I would not mind. That's where it's a Sophie's choice who's going to get an MVP, kind of a deal. And but if I had to pick, I would pick Wembanyama just because of the expectations of the Spurs heading into 2026 or 2025, 2026. Some people felt like they were more, not ready yet to make the ascension they have made. And they've made that ascension already, and they're one of the title favorites right now. So props to them. Speaking of, let's get into rookie year since I brought it up midway through. Like I said, it's VJ Edgecombe, Cooper Flag, and Concanapple. Respect to VJ Edgecombe for being a finalist, but this is a Cooper Flag. Sorry, Sixers fans. I don't mean to alienate y'all right away. VJ has been a great rookie. That's why he's in a finalist spot. But it's the Cooper Flag Concanapple debate, and like me and Jacob talked about a couple weeks ago on the Main Sports Podcast. I do think it should be a co-rookie of the year situation. Now we do have our Charlotte Hornets fan here saying Nick.
Yeah, resident Charlotte Hornets fan.
Resident Charlotte Hornets fan saying it should be Concanapple. But I'm still gonna vote for co, even though it won't be co how the voting system is with the first, second, third place votes. How it staggers the points and stuff like that. But I will still save Co. They both deserve it.
Shane, since you weren't here for that, who do you think should win Rookie of the Year? Are you kind of on the Co road like me and Brandon, or are you thinking you're kind of leaning towards somebody?
I actually think this works out well. I'm leaning heavily towards someone, and it's not Con Knipple.
Oh, who?
I will make the Flag case. So
okay,
this is why I think it's Flag, and it is no disrespect for Con Knipple. He's a great player. But Cooper Flag is statistically better in every category, or at least most of the important categories. I mean, I don't know who has
his accounting
more,
stats he is, but not so much in efficiency. Like
that's where
true.
The efficiency is where Con gets them, especially 3-point efficiency.
Yes,
that's true. But here's first of all, so it's Concanuple is 47.5 from the field percent. Flag is 46.
Yeah.
I think, if you're just looking at them both play, Knepel is the more efficient player.
Yes.
But the other thing that I like to bring up in this debate is role on the team. Considering the fact that everybody on the Mavericks got decimated, Flag had to come into the season knowing that he had to basically be the Jordan for his team. Knepel had to be a role player behind. I don't want to say behind, but like basically
he had to do the third option role behind.
Yeah, exactly.
Melo and Brandon Miller.
Yeah,
and if you want to do the metaphors with it, I guess Melo's Batman, I guess Brandon Miller's Robin, and like Concanipple, I guess it's like Batgirl, maybe like Red Hood.
Okay, yeah,
but,
yeah.
But
no, I would. What I would call, if you want to bring up Batman reference, I would call Knepel the Alfred of this team. I would call him the Alfred of that team, just because of what he would in the shadows, kind of a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Now, Nick did bring up
the vital role, but it's not like he's out there punching dudes in the face. Yeah.
I mean, the two playing games, Knepel didn't play well. And there was the quirk of not being able to get the ballots out until after the cases of Cade Cunningham and Luka Doncic, all the 65 game minimum cases, and the ballots are waited till after the play-in. I would still separate the play-in from the regular season, because it's not really regular season; it is playoffs at that point. So that is the only, like he said, that's the knock on Knepel. But at the same time, like, Knepel was still great. I do agree with you, Shane, to that point of what you're going with the overall story of the Flag, because Flag had to carry the Mavericks. Even though the Mavericks weren't great this year overall, they were one of the worst teams in the league. And they're back in the lottery once again. But at the same time, for me, if I had to pick one, I would go along with you in picking Flag. But it's just so close this year to me. That's where I would go back to, like,
well, both had equally historic seasons, and so I feel like if I wanted to, I would say Knepel, just because of what he was able to do. Like, he shattered, the 3-point shooting records all. Like, the rookie led the league in 3 field goals made. So it's just, that's impressive for a rookie to do. And obviously for Flag, he was, first youngest player to ever drop 50, youngest player to average this amount or whatever. His numbers were insane too. Yeah. So I would lean a little bit more Knepel, but that's just me. But I also would think, like Brandon, co-rookie of the year is kind of the way to go here.
Yeah, 100%. Let's go into most improved, because this one has drawn some controversy online because of Rollins from Milwaukee not being a finalist, Ryan Rollins, who's had a great season. But it is Denny Alvia from the Blazers, who is the favorite right now, Jaren Duran from the Pistons, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker from the Hawks is the three finalists for most improved. I'll start with this one. I'll be a little quick. I'll let you guys be a little bit more analytical. It is Denny's award to win, I do think Nall has a chance to steal it though because of the Hawks' resurgence late in the year, starting the second half of the starting the turn of January into February after the trade deadline, after getting McCollum and Kispert. I think they might Nall's play was one of the stellar parts of that run for Atlanta as well.
Yes.
But if it was all season long, Denny deserves the award. I know he was hurt for a little bit, but he was still able to get to the 65 games. So I think for me, and he's the reason Portland is in the 2-7. So I think Denny Avdia deserves MIP. So whoever wants to go on this real quick.
Yeah, I'll jump on it real quick. When you go from 16 points to 25 points in a single season, like a 9-point increase, I think you should probably win Most Improved Player like Denny has. And it's not to take away from Duren. I think Duren is the deserving of a second because of what he's able to do. He was an all-star this season like Denny for the first time. He averaged, I think it was like 18. He was like third in rebounding in the league at 11 something. So he was a force of nature all season long for the Pistons, and he was a key cog in why they were able to get to the first seed out in the East.
Yeah.
But Denny, like you said, Portland didn't have much expectations coming into the season. You can kind of guess maybe they'd be a playing team because, they still have Holiday. Klingon is coming along.
Yeah.
Denny has gotten better.
And Scoot Henderson's gotten better too.
When they got into that playing game against the Suns, that entire fourth quarter was Denny time. And he took over and he showed the skills of which he improved on this past offseason that has allowed him to elevate his game to a star level, an all-star level. So I think he's deserving of it. And I think, I don't think it'll relatively be close. I don't think it's much of a debate here.
Yeah. Honestly. I think this is like a Wemby situation. It won't be unanimous because I think
I think the votes will be spread out, but I do think he'll win by a decent margin.
Yes. Shane, your thoughts on MIP real quick.
So first of all, I agree with you in that it's kind of it's Denny's award to win. It is a bit between Denny and Duren. My thing about Na is like he's had a great last couple months.
Yeah.
And not that he was bad back in January, but I feel like back in January or wherever we were talking about more Jalen Johnson, Dyson Daniels.
Yeah.
And then as the end of the season, so he got hot now. Props are getting hot now, but it's an entire season award.
Well, his role also increased because of the Trae Young trade too. So he got more playing time. So I think that's also kind of why his stats have gone up too.
Yeah.
Not to say he didn't play well with that increased playing time, but I think that's a little bit of context on that.
Yeah.
If I had to take like anyone off of the finalists for Rollins, it would be Na because Rollins was more consistent throughout the year from the Bucks.
He had to take on a bigger role because of the Giannis injury. So
exactly. So that's if I had to take anyone off of it, it would be Na. But for Rollins, but at the same time, I think Na has like the last couple months outplayed Rollins in certain aspects as well. So I think that's why the media went with Na as the third finalist here. So it's an interesting case. Let's get into Coach of the Year, and I'll start with Nick commented this earlier. He was like, Missoula was like talking about like how the award should be named someone else, and he wanted to make his point of, this is why coaching don't matter in the league. Coaching matters, Nick. Yeah. This is a podcast where coaching matters. And we will always,
especially in the playoffs.
Especially
regular season, I can understand, but playoffs, different beast. You need a good.
We will trump you on all the time. Okay, we will trump you on this. We will trump you. So you comment it, it's fine. We'll shout you out, but we'll be like, no, it matters. It matters, especially when it comes to playoff time. But anyway, that being said, the three finalists are J.B. Bickerstaff, Joe Mazzulla, as mentioned, and Mitch Johnson from the San Antonio Spurs. I'll start with mine, and I'll start with my pick. on this. I mean, he said, "Well, Shaq agrees with that." I mean, Shaq has his own voice, but we like to be.
Well, Shaq's opinions also fluctuate with the wind, so
exactly that too.
yeah.
That too, because he was one of the great. He played under one of the greatest coaches of all time in Phil Jackson for so many years. Let's just stop it. But anyway, let's get into this. I'll start with my thoughts on Coach of the Year. We'll get a little bit these last couple a little quick here. But for me, I think it should go to Mitch Johnson. Like in my point earlier with Wemby win MVP, I think Mitch Johnson has done a hell of a job as the coach for the San Antonio Spurs, replacing Popovich. His first full year coaching, has gotten this team to the second seed. I do like his rotations a lot. How he staggers minutes with like the three guards, especially with Castle and Fox and Harper. He staggers their minutes and actually gets production from all three of them and at key moments. I do like that a lot. Obviously, with the Wemby stuff that you mentioned earlier, where he only plays like 20 some minutes a game. And be as dominant as he is, I do like that, keeping him healthy for the postseason. Now, I do expect his minutes to ramp up in the postseason, as we saw the other night or last night in that Blazers series, the Blazers opener, as we'll get into here in a little bit. So Mitch Johnson's my guy. How about you guys?
I'll go first. I would say Missoula. I would definitely lean more towards Missoula, and I think he kind of had the same thing as Johnson, not in terms of I would say not in terms of like he's already established coach. Mitch, this is his first full year coaching. So, you had lower expectations, whereas maybe a little bit higher expectation for Missoula, but it's like marginal just because you had a lot of fluctuation in the offseason. You lost Drew Holiday, you lost Kristaps Porzingis. Tatum was essentially done for the year.
Yeah.
Which you thought. But so he comes into the season, everybody's just like, well, Boston, I think, is more so like they're going to be like a playoff team, but they're going to be like one of the lower seeds just because, the East is a little bit of a weaker conference. He comes out, gets the second seed. And, he does it with Brown and a, rotation of Queta, Garza, and, just a cobble of different front court players that, you never really heard of. So he's able to, balance that out. And then, now that Tatum has come back in and he's able to – and you really see Missoula how great he is when it comes to rotations because he knows how to implement rotations well. Because the thing for me is I thought the Tatum coming back early, I thought that would throw off their flow and their rotation. But, since he's come back, he's been able to stagger his minutes a little bit more. He's been able to play, his rotations a little bit better, like in terms of like, balancing out the minutes for everybody. And you've really never seen a drop off on that. Instead, you've seen like an improvement, which is insane. So that's why I think Missoula is sort of the guy to win the award.
Yeah, that's a good argument for Missoula because that's I like what Joe Missoula did this year. I just the expectations. For Boston was still going to be a good team. I don't think they were going to be like what they are right now. That does make the strong case for Missoula. But the thing is, I just like how I think the Spurs deserve a little bit of love in the awards this year because of the expectations. Like I said, that I think that's
beating those expectations like they have was winning 60 games. That's understandable.
Yeah. So for what about you?
I actually was going to make the case for Bickerstaff, which I think is interesting. So we got all three. I'm not doing it just to be the third one out. I'm just, I honestly think
I love Bickerstaff too. So go ahead, make the case.
And it is a bit like the MVP. I'm not going to be angry whoever wins it. My thing for Bickerstaff is that I think of who's had to coach differently because in a way, all three teams with these coaches have faced some type of adversity. It was losing Tatum for Boston. For Detroit, it was losing Cade for a bit. And for the Spurs had like a couple injuries and then just like being young and being way ahead of schedule. But, like I don't want to say that Johnson. I really don't want it because Johnson has been very smart managing Wembanyama's minutes.
Yes.
Same thing. Same thing with, I would say, for Missoula, it's more so managing Tatum when he came back. But I was really impressed with Bickerstaff in the stretch that they did not have Cade, because for me, losing a Cade, it's like more big, because it's like that's their offensive identity. Without Cade, they kind of don't run, and yet he put in Dennis Jenkins in there. And they seem to be, and that unit is, it's a top 4 defensive unit. I think we probably went into the season thinking that the Celtics would have a top, 5 defense. Spurs might have been, a surprise, but if you ever hop on NBA 2K, guess what a lot of people like to do? They like to pick the Spurs, and then they control Victor Wembanyama on defense. So even they know, that like that team was going to do something defensively. So all 3 teams faced adversity. I just feel like Bickerstaff, the way that he moved around his players, not so much through rotations, but utilization, position-wise too. Like he would move Duncan Robinson from the 2 to the 3 a couple times, and especially that run without Cade, he had to make he had to get a lot out of an older Tobias Harris and Duran, So for me it would be Bickerstaff, but again by a very close margin.
I mean, I
think this is one of those. I think this award is probably the most heated in terms of like how close it's going to be, because but all 3 of these dudes have very strong cases, so I just think it'll be one of the closer awards this season.
Yeah, I think with that being said, I think we're all in agreement with 6-man being Keldon Johnson. And a clutch player probably going to go to Shea.
Yeah,
Keldon's gonna deserve it. I mean, 6-man of the year is more of just like, who do you like best? Who had the most impact? And most of the time, 6-man goes to one of the top seeds anyway. So
yeah, exactly. So with that being said, let's get into our next segment of this wonderful pilot episode, the Orlando Magic. As we get into Shane's Coach of the Year pick a little bit, the Orlando Magic pull off the stunner of beating the Hornets on Friday night's play-in, and then they pull off the stunner on Sunday, beating the lone 8-7 seed to win a game, pulling off the upset in Detroit. The reaction to this has been interesting when you go to social media right now. It's like, are the Pistons frauds? Did Orlando finally figure something out? Is Jamal Mosley, figuring out as he's throwing stuff on the wall? Credit to Paulo for actually playing well, but Jalen Suggs is the one that set the tone in this game defensively on Cade Cunningham and set the tone offensively as well for the Magic a little bit. So that is the standout here. But let's get into this game a little bit, guys. Starting with you, Jacob. Let's talk about this game a little bit more.
Well, I did tell you a couple weeks ago that the Pistons, out of all the top seeds on either conference, they were the most questionable one. I think I said they were a second-round exit because I think Cleveland could beat them. But and the reason I did that is because their flaws came home to roost in the first game. I mean, you saw why they were one of the worst ranked 3-point shooting teams in the league. They shot 29% from 3. So they weren't able to generate anything on offense. And then you saw also outside of Cunningham, it's very limited on offense because you have to rely on Tobias Harris, who, his consistency on offense is up and down all the time. Duran, he's come along on offense, but his game still needs growing on that end. He's more of a post-up guy.
Yeah.
A pick and roll and a post-up guy. And then, they don't have much shooters. Thompson can't shoot. He's more of a defensive player.
Yeah.
And then Duncan Robinson, while he, has been a good 3-point shooter through his career this season, I think he only shot sub 30%, something like that.
Which is a shock when you think about Duncan Robinson's career, though. Like that was his.
That's his. That's his thing, and he has been okay at it this season. So you see the holes really starting to come through for the Pistons. And I still think, even though they lost the first game, where he's like, "Oh, are the Magic that good?" I'm like, maybe, but I also think, when you have somebody like Biggerstaff, he's great at making adjustments, so he'll find a way to create more, open things up on offense. Their defense is fine. It was their offense that was an issue. So I think that was the thing. And then for the Pistons, I just think, if Tobias Harris and Duren can, at least get you 15 points, I think they win easily. So that's my thing for them.
So let me get into this before you go, Shane. With the Pistons, my concern with them was not only the three-point shooting, was their half-court offense as a whole. And the fact you have to take off Asar Thompson, who is a Defensive Player of the Year finalist, as we mentioned earlier, for a long stretch of the second half, if not all the second half, to play Jenkins more, just because you lack creativity in the half-court game right now. It's a concern, and this is and the fact that the Magic have exposed that means even if Detroit gets through this series, I think Cleveland will expose that in the next round. But go ahead, Shane.
All right, so about the defense for Orlando, what's the name of the coach? Lewis Blackwell?
Mosley.
Jamal Mosley.
Mosley. Yeah, okay. A lot of people were saying that he was on the hot seat going into this. So he's playing for his job a bit, and if that's the case, then well done to him. That's one. The other thing, too, is that, Jacob, what you said about, like, Tobias and Duren, if you get 15 points out of them, you win. I think 15 points is the minimum you could ask from Duren, and I think he got 8 in that game.
Yeah, he only got 8, and then Tobias only got 8 or 9. So
and I'm not saying that just because, like, oh, he's an all-star and he only got 8 points. I'm also saying that because of the half-court offense issue, is that if you have a threat in Jamie Duren and you have trouble creativity offensively, then you would think that one easy solution is running the pick and roll with Cade and Duren. In general, if Duren is not doing well, and you if neither him nor Tobias are doing well, it becomes a bit easier for Orlando because they know that, okay, we have to double Cade, and we have to make everyone else shoot. And it's weird to think that includes Duncan Robinson, because you think of, like, 2020 Heat Duncan Robinson, he looked like he made everything from 3. So
exactly.
I feel like it's a mixture of, like, mostly coaching his ass off, and then the Detroit not making, and that was the big criticism, I think, of their team, regardless of being a 1 seed, was that Cade was their offense. And if you isolate Cade, it's a great defensive team that can't do much in the half court. And the only other thing I'll say is that I think we're consistently being wrong about Paolo Banchero, throughout his career. Because, like, he came, we thought he was going to be maybe not in the next Jordan, but, like, big-time player, has not lived up to what the Magic have wanted him to do. But it seems like halfway through this season, we've not been saying, oh, Orlando messed up with Banchero, and now he's playing up to, what we expected.
Well, that's the weird thing about this is the most efficient Banchero game we've had in the last, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, maybe the last month. 8 for 15 from the floor, 2 for 4 from 3 for 23 points. I mean, that was the most efficient Paolo game we had in recent stretch. And then Wagner finally got some shine too with 19, 7 for 13 from the floor. Now, I did say Suggs set the tone offensively. He did struggle shooting efficiency-wise, 6 for 16, 3 for 10 from 3. Bane had a struggle from the field too, 7 for 20, 1 for 8 from 3. And the fact that they still won by like 11 points, which is the crazy part.
It's because Detroit couldn't generate anything on offense. That's why I said it wasn't a defensive issue for Detroit. That was far out of the question. But it was the offensive issue. And I know I messed up. I said Tobias only got 9. No, he got 12. He was the only other Pistons player to finish in double digits scoring wise. So they just need to generate more on offense. They need more.
So Tobias had 17. Tobias had 17. Cade had 39. Everyone else was the next highest was Duncan at 9. Everyone else was 8 or below.
Yeah.
Which is crazy in the playoff game.
Yeah.
So
the thing about, I agree that like for Detroit, it's an offensive issue, it's not defensively, but at the same time, Paulo, he likes to take his time when he gets the ball in the low block. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
He grabs it. It's usually 5 seconds. He'll decide whether he wants to post up or he wants to go for the layup. I would think Duran, Tobias, Thompson would not let that happen. And so far, that's not been the case. So,
and then you also brought up the point they're taking out. But you also brought up the point they're taking out Thompson for almost the majority of the second half. So you're kind of taking away the guy that can defend, Banchero. So I feel like they need to fix that in. They also need to fix their offensive issues.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
I think I mean, that was the stunner of the weekend. Those Orlando Magic situations. Let's get into the rest of the action of game ones, starting with the Saturday action. What is y'all's takeaway? I'll give you mine real quick from Saturday, which was the Lakers winning against Houston, just because in LeBron being turning the clocks of time and having almost a triple double for the Lakers. Even though there is the caveat, Kevin Durant did not play in game one for the Rockets. There's that caveat. But if the Lakers can get that production from LeBron and Luke Kennard shooting the way he did and Rui the way the Lakers can make the series interesting. And at least until maybe Luka and Reeves can come back. And I think if those guys can come back, if they can get it to where those guys can come back, the Lakers can win this series. So I take away from that.
I want to jump in on that. I just don't foresee Luka coming back in this series. Like a hamstring injury is a big deal. And I know everybody's just like, well, it was probably not an injury. I'm just like, well, if it's not an injury issue, there's 3 things that are going to happen. One, a drug test is coming if he comes back in the first round. Secondly, a fine is definitely on the way. And so you have those aspects of it. So I just don't think he's coming back this series. I think if the Lakers win this series, it'll be the next series he comes back.
Yeah, exactly.
But same with Reeves. Reeves is in the same ballpark.
I think so too.
But for the Lakers, the way they won that game, I was surprised by their defense. I was surprised by their defense the most. And I do think that caveat of KD not being there really showed through the weaknesses of this Rockets offense, because outside of Durant, what other shot creators do they have? Şengün is good, but he's a low post player. He doesn't have much of an outside game.
Exactly.
Thompson, he's a freak of nature. He can slash to the basket, great defender, but can't shoot at all. Yeah. So, that's where the issues arise for them. And I was very surprised by the defensive effort of the Lakers, but also kind of not, because you took out Luka and you took out Reeves. You take up 2, negative defenders, they get better on defense. So
exactly. Yeah. I also want to highlight too the first father-son to ever play in a postseason game together in Bronny. I do want to highlight that because that is a milestone. Another milestone for James family.
It's a cool thing.
Because even though Bronny's not the best player in the league, obviously he's not going to be his dad. He's not going to be as great as his father. I think he's going to be a great role player in this league for years to come. And it shows that the Lakers are taking the time to develop him. And it's also good. It also is a benefit that Luka and Reeves got injured, that Bronny can get these minutes. And everything.
Even if he doesn't produce in those minutes, it's good for him to get some development and playing time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bronny had 4 minutes played, no points, but he did log a turnover and 2 fouls, so he didn't really produce like we said.
Yeah.
In that time frame. But the fact that he got some time and got some minutes in a playoff game is a step in the right direction for the development. Shane, do you have any thoughts on the Lakers 107-98 win on Saturday night?
Yeah. My thing is, I'm going to agree with Jacob and disagree with Jacob.
Yeah.
So he's absolutely right about when Durant's gone, not a lot of offensive creation. Sengun is the only guy who can really make his own shot. And even at that, he's inefficient. And then, Thompson, not really his thing. Reed Shepard needs to be coming off of a screen or something to get hot.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing about Luka coming back is I hear what you're saying about, potential fine and whatnot. But imagine if this series goes to Game 7 in the Staples Center.
Yeah.
You think Luka's not going to want to come back to that?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, the time frame too for his injury. So
I don't think JJ will hold him out, and I also think JJ has mental feedback from a certain point guard he played with in that building in 2015 when Chris Paul injures his hamstring the game, but in that game, battled through his hamstring injury, gets the game winner against the Spurs in the defeat the defending champs. So in the first round. So there is some JJ knows this, but that the fact that the matter is too, Shane, I do agree with Jacob in this aspect. Health-wise, it's not the smartest for the Lakers to try to push Luka back from a hamstring. In this series, I would see that more for Reed's oblique. If that is the case, if Reed's back for a Game 7, then a Luka Doncic.
Yeah, that seems more plausible than a Luka one. And I just think, if anything, the Lakers can win this series. I just think if they do, Reeves and Luka will be back for round 2.
Yes. They'll be back for round 2, 100%.
My thing is if it goes to a Game 7 and the Rockets end up winning, Luka and JJ might feel like, we were Luka Doncic away from winning. But you're absolutely right about the hamstring, health-wise, But
it's a soft tissue injury. Those are so hard to come back from. And
oblique's also soft tissue too, but at the same time, it's easier to come back. I think it's easier to come back from oblique than it is a hamstring.
That is true.
I mean, Sam Darnold had an oblique injury and then won a Super Bowl. So
exactly.
He also had a great running game too that helped offset that.
Yeah, an MVP that they didn't re-sign, but that's another podcast.
That's another podcast.
That's a whole different thing.
This is another podcast. But but the thing about Luka too is that now I've heard, I'm not saying he should do this, but I heard that he wants to come back immediately because he went to Spain and I guess, he saw the Spanish doctors and they gave him some. Personally, I'm in the camp of I don't care what they did with him. You don't want to be messing with your hamstring. But if he's clamoring to come back and so Game 2 happens, Game 3 happens. He wants to come back. You say no. We're gonna. The most important thing for the Lakers is Luka's health. If he's out working out and it's Game 7, I would consider bringing him back.
The other thing, I want to jump in real quick. And the other thing about soft tissue injuries, especially hamstrings, they can snowball into a whole separate injury taking place because you don't have that strength that you need. Say a hamstring could lead to a calf injury, and then on down the line. So it can snowball into other things. So it's a very delicate situation.
Yes, I agree with you there, Jacob. So go ahead, Shane. Go ahead.
Can I just say one more thing about the Houston thing?
Go ahead.
I don't know who injured Kevin Durant's knees, but I just hope that all the other role players and bench players in the NBA realize that if you're in the playoffs and you have a star on your team, you don't have to go that hard in practice.
No, but luckily it's no structural damage, and they're optimistic for his Game 2 return, as reported earlier on SportsCenter. So that is the good news for the Rockets. So they'll probably have to ramp back for Game 2 tomorrow.
It was probably more the way they talk about it. It sounds like more of a strain, like he strained his knee rather than they bumped knees, it got strained, and then rather than an overextension or something like that, which is a little bit worse.
Yeah, I just feel like if I was on the court, I'd be like, even if you just make a little bit of contact, it's just why, bro?
The 2 Eastern Conference games on Saturday were kind of standard. Cleveland routed Toronto. Toronto did make it like a 13-point game, but it was not a 13-point game. And then the Knicks Hawks was close for a half, but the Knicks took over in the second half, and Josh Hart kind of shut down Jalen Johnson. That is my takeaway from those Eastern Conference games on Saturday. But the one I want to really, really dive into is the Timberwolves Nuggets. The T-Wolves showed for like a half and a little bit into the third quarter that they could keep up with Denver, but the 14-0 run when it was tied at 68 really showed me that the Denver Nuggets are a different team this year than the last time that these two teams played in the playoffs, because of the efficiency from outside, as improved from Aaron Gordon. And the way that they can just the two-man game, really, the Minnesota can't defend a two-man game. This iteration of the two-man game with Jokic and Murray like they did before. And they haven't really made that adjustment. And also the fact of the matter is Ant's still dealing with his injury.
The runner's knee.
The runner's knee. So it looked like he was still fatigued. And I was leaning towards on Friday showed Minnesota just because of the history of this, but now that watching that game from start to finish, it's the Nuggets series to lose. That's the Saturday action. Unless y'all have more thoughts on Minnesota.
I'd like to talk about the Minnesota one real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it'll probably, even though Denver won, I do think it'll still be like a series that could potentially go to 7 games just because of the rivalry between these two teams. And
exactly.
So, like, before this playoffs, before game 1, the last 18 or so times that these teams have met, or no, I think it was like 28 times, they went 14-14.
Yeah.
So, like, it's like both teams are dead even on that end.
100%.
And the reason for that is because, you have, even though Jokic can do whatever he wants on offense and Gobert can't really do anything to defend against him, I think it's more so about what Denver is able to do outside of Jokic. Because even though Murray, he scored 30 points, half of it came from the free throw line. He went 0 of 8 from 3. I do think, when they get that two-man action, the Nuggets, they're a whole different animal. And it's not so much the two-man action. I think it's more so now. What was the biggest flaw for the last 2 years since they won the championship? They didn't have much of a bench. Well, now they have a bench. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a 6th Man of the Year finalist. Bruce Brown is back and playing well. You got Valanciunas who could come off the bench and take off some minutes for Jokic. He doesn't have to have much of a heavy minutes. And so you have that sort of stuff, and then you have Cam Johnson, who is a far better version of Michael Porter Jr. just because he is able to actually play defense. He's not a donut defense like Porter. So I think in terms of that, I think the Nuggets should be the favorite in this series, but I wouldn't be surprised if it went 7 just because of the history and the rivalry between these two teams.
I think for me too, you bring up the Valanciunas stuff, and that is the big argument for Denver for me, because the fact that Valanciunas can come in and give Jokic some time off the court in this series, like in a series, is going to be a difference maker for the Nuggets to keep up with the Spurs and the Thunder because of the fact that the Jokic is going to be well rested in these final clutch minutes. More so than, Hartenstein and Chet, even though the Thunder do great with their rotations. That is that's Mark Dagnall's specialties, the rotations with his bigs. Just look at last year's, that was how they won,
rotation with Williams, Hartenstein, and Chet. Yeah.
So, but at the same time, too, having that for Denver now and getting a guy like Bruce Brown to come back and be from that 20, back on that
from that championship team.
Have that experience. And Christian Brown being a key factor too. Once again, Shane, any other thoughts on Minnesota Denver before we get to
or really any other first round series like
that? I think all the other games for Saturday were Spurs took care of business. Everyone else took care of business. For Minnesota, I just think that I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. It could be a sweep just because I feel like if Edwards is still suffering from the runners, like we'll find out tonight because they play at 10 p.m. Eastern. But if he's still suffering from that injury, I know exactly what he's going to want to do. His team is down 1. He's going to want to try to push it every time he has the ball. And
Exactly.
if you're Anthony Edwards, it means you're doing two things. You're either shooting a three or you're running as hard as you can, to the paint. So if he can't run as well, that might really be, like if he starts, driving to the paint and starts looking like old Ant-Man, then I'll be like, okay, they have a shot in this series.
Yeah,
but
if he can get down,
don't have a reliable Ant-Man.
Yeah, if he gets downhill, I think it makes it an interesting series.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with that. Let's get into a little bit of the other Sunday games, because these Sunday games were all pretty much controlled by the higher seed. But the most impressive one, I mean, I know Phoenix was not a great team entering this, entering against OKC, but the way that OKC dominated and rolled them off the court.
Yeah.
No, I did not see that coming. I thought it was going to be probably holding the Suns team to 84 points after what Jalen Green and Devin Booker did against the Warriors on two nights before. I'm
not terribly surprised by that, because there's two things that factor in that. You're talking about the Warriors, who have an old Al Horford, defending the paint, so they didn't have many bigs that could and their overall defense, while it's solid, wasn't enough to stop a guy like D Book or Jalen Green, who has been hot the last month.
No, I agree with you there. The Thunder's personnel is better than the Warriors.
Yeah, and then I think
where I'm coming from, that it's just the fact that 84 only, holding a team to 84 points is 90s level basketball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Without the 90s rule set.
Yeah, without the 90s rules. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at with that. I mean, yes, the Thunder are legit title contenders once again, and this game showed it. I think this is all these other games on Sunday are probably going to be sweeps, and I hate to say that about the Sixers series, and it wouldn't have been a sweep if Embiid was healthy.
Literally the only two series or few series that are in this first round that are kind of interesting is the Rockets, Lakers, Timberwolves, Nuggets, and then everybody else is kind of just maybe the what's the other one? Maybe the Pistons, Magic, because of the upset. So I just don't see this first round being that exciting like it was last year, where we had multiple game sevens.
Yeah. I think for me too, before I go back to you, Shane, I wanted to say this as well. Yes, it's going to be really chalky before, and all that stuff, but the Magic Pistons could be a surprise after, like we talked about earlier. That could be a surprise series now. I did not expect that I did not expect to be based on play heading into the postseason. So go ahead, Shane. Talk about Sunday action.
Yeah. I keep thinking about what I know earlier in the show we're talking about, Shaq's opinion. I can think about what Chuck's been saying all year, which is that the class of this, sort of it's OKC, San Antonio and Denver, and it's not every and then there's everyone else in the NBA. As a fan of good basketball and watching parity, I like to not believe that, because I like to think, anyone could beat anyone on the night. It's just, circumstances. But the fact that OKC held Phoenix to 84 is making that sentiment ring true. That maybe it is just those three teams are on Mount Olympus and nobody can hang with them. Exactly. And Jalen Green dropped 36 on Golden State and then came out to OKC. And I don't think the Warriors are a bad defensive. They're old because of Horford and stuff.
Yeah.
They're not a bad defensive team. And it went from 36 to so I think the Thunder, it's they're that much leveled up. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I also think for that Warriors game, I think the Warriors expended so much energy to come back and beat the Clippers. I think that's why.
I agree with you.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
I agree with you there. Let's get into our picks. What I want for our picks is Western Conference champ, Eastern Conference champ, then Finals champ. I'll start with you, Shane.
All right. Well, since we're just talking about them, I think the Oklahoma City Thunder are coming out of the West. I feel so bad for teams that have like potential to upset them, like San Antonio, like Denver, like even Houston to an extent. But I just it's the fact that they have Shea and they have the best defense in the league. Usually teams that are that good defensively have to give up something offensively. But even if they just had Shea, they would still be in a good position because Shea is a half-court offense by himself. He's getting smarter too. Like that's what's crazy is like he's doing a better job of learning when to kick it out, when to drive the lane, when to shoot.
And he's so inconsistent, or not inconsistent. He's so consistent.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Him getting 28 a night is like a foregone conclusion.
Yeah. Well, he passed Wilt for the most 20-point games in a row, like consecutively. Yeah. So I mean that's crazy.
Yeah, if someone told me like, hey, I think SGA is going to score 30 tonight, I'd be like, wow, that's crazy. I think the Sun's also going to rise as well. Like it's just that
exactly.
So I'd love to see some good basketball. I'd love to see some teams try to find some chinks in the armor, but I think it's going to be OKC in the finals again.
Yeah.
And then about the Eastern Conference.
Oh, you want all my picks?
Eastern Conference winner, and then your final winner.
Yeah.
Okay, so feel free to call me biased because I am in the Boston metro area, but I think the Celtics are going to win the East. Reason being, I'm not calling Detroit frauds, and I don't even think they're going to lose to the Magic, regardless of what happened.
No, I don't think
game
so
one.
Either.
I think they're losing to the Cavs next round.
Yeah,
because the kind of like unstoppable force with an immovable object, and a team with like 4 offensive all-stars.
Yeah,
maybe Jared Allen's not an all-star, but like somewhere at least below that tier.
Yeah.
Well, they just have so much firepower Cleveland does compared to Detroit.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like that is I feel like the Cavs are going to upset Detroit in that series, and then it would be an Eastern Conference Finals between Cavs and Boston.
Yeah.
In which case, whereas Detroit has answers if you're defending them, where it's like, okay, we'll double Cade, we'll make sure Durant doesn't get going, and then we're kind of good. Yeah. Boston's a lot harder. Even if you stop all their starters, this little guy called Peyton Pritchard is going to come off the bench and he's going to drop 20 on you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I feel like and I feel like honestly, I think it's more than anything, it's the depth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In terms of having players come off the bench play really good. Shireman's been playing well. They can rest anyone they want, and that also includes the fact that when it gets into like second quarter, end of the third quarter rotations, they can take out Tatum, keep him Brown, take out Brown, put in Tatum, and then just surround him with shooters either way. Yeah. So Boston's my. Do you want my finals?
Yeah, go
your final winner. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, yep, okay. All the way. Boston is upsetting OKC.
Okay.
I'm calling it.
All right.
I like it.
No, so the question is, why is Boston the team to beat the best team in the NBA right now? I think it's because to break through the stout that is, OKC, what do you have to do? I'm not, a NBA defensive analyst, but I know one thing you got to do is spread them out. You can't let them, and Boston is built to where you kind of have to play that way. And it's not just because part of it is because we have a lot of shooters that you can't leave open. But then the other part is that the ball handlers are really smart, and Tatum will make you pay for doubling him. Brown will make you play for doubling him. And then if you play just like man-to-man, they also punish you because you leave Brown a lane, you know?
Yeah.
And then you try to double him in the paint, then he kicks out to Derek White, then he kicks out to Payne Pritchard, then he kicks out
I also
to
think their defense
Sam
is
Hauser's. Yeah.
I also think like their defense is
it has.
with Tatum coming back. So
Yeah.
I think that adds another dynamic on top of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if that ends up being the series, again, Shai will be dropping 30 a game. I have no doubt about that. But I think the Boston is going to do such a good job of handling Chet, J. Will, Hardenstein, etc.
Yeah.
That they'll pull it out. So I just did the NBA.com where you can you can pick a bracket, and if you do a perfect bracket, you win some money. So I did that the other day, and I had Boston coming out, and I didn't sit down and I want the Celtics to win. How am I going to have a bracket? Like, that's just the way I did it, and I just let my picks be my picks, and it ended up being Boston. So that's my pick for the finals.
That's that is underrated. My cohort,
it's underrated. Yeah,
it's underrated. I don't think a lot of people are going to pick Boston to win it all. A lot of people will pick Boston to get through the East. Go ahead, Jacob.
I'll throw out a little bit different one, especially for the West. I think the Nuggets have the potential. I think if I had to pick, I would pick them. And the reason I pick them over, a team like OKC is just because of the playoff experience of the squad. I mean, you have your championship core together. You have, Murray there. You have Brown is healthy. Gordon, your entire championship core is healthy. Yeah. So everybody's there. And then, you just have, like I've been talking about, that 2-man game with Jokic and Murray. It's basically impossible to stop. And I think, barring any injuries, I think they will win because, you saw it last year. Like they took OKC to 7 games, and you had a hobbled Jokic and you had a hobbled Gordon, and and no bench, and you still took them to 7 games. Yeah. And now the bench is better. Everybody's healthy. So now I think is the chance for them to, upset OKC. I think they have a strong shot at doing it. And for the East, I would say the Celtics too. Just because I don't trust the Knicks. The Knicks have always been inconsistent in the playoffs. Like, even though they went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and everybody's like, oh, they're, it feels like they're a little bit better than last year. I just I can't see them playing Boston again and then beating Boston again. I just can't see it happening.
I can't either.
And then Detroit, I wouldn't say they're frauds. I would say they're ahead of schedule. They're a little early. Yeah. Just because, even though they're, the first seed and everything like that, they're still a very young team trying to find their way through, and they still have very obvious holes. So I think a second-round exit against Cleveland is more than likely going to happen. And even for Cleveland, even if they get to the Eastern Conference Finals, I don't trust Harden. No. D-Mitch is great. And they have overall, their core is pretty solid, and they have, enough firepower to keep in the games, and obviously they have a great defense with Allen and Mobley patrolling the paint. Yeah. So I just don't trust Harden. You have Harden on your team. I can't trust you to win a championship. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
and then so it's going to be a Nuggets Celtics sort of finals, and I'm going to pick the Nuggets again for that, just because of the championship experience of the guys, and everybody's healthy, barring any injuries. And I think that series has a potential to go 7 games, and I think it will go 7 games.
Yeah.
And I think the reason it'll go 7 games is because, the thing for Boston is they don't have the front court to handle Jokic as well. Mm-hmm. Because, even though, you could throw Garza or Shireman at him, or even who's the other guy? Oh, what was his name?
Keita.
Kata?
Nimbus Kata.
I feel like Kata. I just don't see them being able to slow Jokic down in any way, shape, or form. It's like OKC. OKC could probably do that, but I think they get outplayed at other ends of the floor, from other players.
Yeah.
But I just don't see them being able to stop Jokic. And I see them being able to go 7 games just because of Boston's ability to hit threes. They have so many shooters on their team that they can keep it, in games, and their defense is solid enough. They could get enough stops. and make it a series. I have the Nuggets winning.
I do like your Nuggets pick. I do like Shane's Boston pick. I do like y'all's picks. But here's why I think y'all are underestimating a certain team down in Texas, South Texas, in the San Antonio Spurs. Y'all are underestimating these Spurs, okay? So, first off, you got Wembanyama, who has had a lot of experience, not in NBA playoff aspects, but internationally. He's had a lot of experience in these high-pressure leverage kind of situations.
Well, especially in the Olympics. He was in the Olympics, yeah.
He led the French to a gold medal game, almost beat the U.S. If it wasn't for Steph Curry's heroics, I think the French would have won that gold medal in 2024.
Yeah.
For sure. So that is one reason alone that I'm like, okay, Wembanyama is probably the best player on the court other than Jokic. And if it is a Jokic Spurs next round, which is, that's where the Spurs can fall is against Denver, I think.
Yeah. I think Denver's the only team that can conceivably beat them.
Yeah, because of the way Jokic has dominated in the games against Wemby this year.
Yeah.
That being said, I do think Wembanyama will figure something out against Denver, and that series will go 7. And I do like OKC, and I like how they showed them against Phoenix, but at the same time, the Spurs, when they were healthy earlier in the year, dominated OKC. Now, granted, OKC didn't have J-Dub, and I think ever since they got J-Dub back, they've been another animal. And in my Western Conference Finals, I do have OKC and San Antonio. I think Castle's going to step up and have a great playoffs. Yeah. I really do think Stephon Castle is going to be the next star, and a new star alongside Wembanyama, and
Can I throw another key player that I think will really determine San Antonio's championship chances outside of Castle?
Go ahead.
I think it's Fox. I think it's got to be Fox, because he creates so much on offense in terms of his ability to drive and shot creation ability. I just think Castle's great. He's going to be a two-way monster for years to come. Mm-hmm. Yes. But I think, if they really want to, have a championship chance right now, it's got to be Fox.
It's got to be De'Aaron. I agree with you there. And I do think De'Aaron and Castle give the Wemby enough against the Thunder to get the Spurs back to the finals. The East, I agree with you, both of you guys. It is Boston. Boston's the best team in the East by far. Detroit
I think if they didn't have Tatum, I think it would be a different story. But now they have Tatum back.
Tatum back. It is Boston's Eastern Conference to lose. And it sucks because I was thinking the Knicks were going to actually do something. Good luck with Boston. I'm matching up with them right now. So with that being said, I have the Spurs Celtics finals, and I'm going to have the San Antonio Spurs winning it all. I really do like this Spurs makeup. And they can match it. I think they can match with Boston, what Boston brings. Especially with what you pointed out, Jacob, with Jokic and the Celtics. Wemby can do the same thing to the Celtics. With the bigs.
Or you can stretch them out. That's the thing.
Yeah, you can stretch the Celtics out. And the defensive intensity of the Spurs is something the Celtics haven't really seen. Won't see of any other team on their path. And I feel like the West this year, any three of those any of the OKC, Denver, or Spurs is going to win the championship just because of the fact that they're going to go through the gauntlet. And normally the team that goes through the gauntlet performs the best in the finals a lot of the time. When you look at go back through the history of it, look at the Bucks, for instance. And in the 2021 run, no one expected them to win the finals that year, but they went through the gauntlet of beating the Nets and then beating the Hawks the way they did, and then winning the finals because of the resiliency of going through the gauntlet, those series the way they did. Look at Indiana; they kept it close. They were in the gauntlet, but at the same time, OKC was in the gauntlet with Denver, and a couple game sevens that they shouldn't have been. Like you would think, OKC was so great, they shouldn't have been in the game sevens. But OKC went through the gauntlet with Denver, went through the gauntlet with Minnesota, and then went through the gauntlet, winning the championship with Indiana. So the team I feel like that gets out of the West, that gauntlet in the West of the 2-3, and then with OKC.
Yeah, the 1, 2, 3 seeds. Yeah.
Any of the 1, 2, 3 seeds in the West is going to win it. But I'm going to go out and win and then pick the youngest of those 3 teams in the San Antonio Spurs. That is my pick to win.
I love how we're not picking the defending champs. I love that because
I was so close to picking the defending champ. The only reason I am not picking the defending champs is because I'm not certain that J-Dub looked great against Phoenix. I'm not certain that J-Dub is still healthy, like the most healthy now. I'm not buying the J-Dub hype right now, and I love Jalen.
Well, the wrist injury on your shooting hand is so hard to come back from and really find your rhythm. So he hasn't been able to do it this season. He's also had other injuries that hampered him.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I just don't see it.
And also too, I think with Chet had a great game 1. That buzzer beater was the best. That was the best highlight of the game 1s was that first quarter buzzer beater from Chet, in my estimation. But at the same time, I think I do like Chet, and I think Chet's going to extend. I just don't think in a situation again, if it is a healthy Jokic and a healthy Wembanyama against Chet Holmgren, I think they both of those bigs can expose them in the post when Hartenstein's not in the game, and that could be the determining factor to OKC not repeating. Which I do love Chet. Like I said, I do like Chet Holmgren. I think he's the second, one of the best bigs in the league. He's not the best. He's not Jokic. He's not Wemby. And that's what's going to be the determining
He's one
factor.
of the best defensive players, but he really hasn't grown too much on offense to really ascend into like a top 10 player discussion.
Yeah, and this is not us saying OKC fans that might find this video.
Yeah,
we love your team. We love that you're the reigning champs, and you have a great shot of winning it all again. We just believe in the Boston way with Brown and Tatum playing.
We believe in parity, which has been the biggest thing for the NBA in the past 6 years. So I think it's
parity.
Very true.
Parity is going to happen again this year. The dynasty might be dead, but the thing is, I would say this: one of the 3 teams in the West or Boston can be the next dynasty. I think.
Yeah,
that's the way those rosters are, and how they're how they play off each other, and how those organizations treat the league. So it's possible we could get the dynasty.
And of course, money-wise, too, I think the reason for OKC not really being in dynasty talks is because what happens when you got to pay all your players?
Exactly. Oh, they're already paying.
You're not going to be able to build out your bench. Wallace, you're not going to be able to keep Wallace. You're not going to be able to keep Russo or Hartenstein.
Exactly. Exactly. So with that being said, fellas, thank y'all for – I want to thank everyone here. These guys, me and Jacob are going to, be great together. I love our discussions on the main sports podcast. I talked with him a couple weeks ago about doing this podcast. And it has been a great birth. And I feel like this was a great pilot episode. And
look, I love talking. NBA is basketball is my favorite sport. So I love talking about it any chance I can get, man.
Yeah. So same for me while football's dead. So
football's dead. Yeah.
Right now, basketball's my thing. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but at the same time, I do love having I was so glad I was able to facilitate this and help y'all, help us, with another podcast here.
Yeah, you kind of surprised me today. You're just like, hey, you doing the pod today? I'm just like, we have a pod today?
Yeah. Yep. No, I just sent you the link. I was like, link.
Yeah, you sent me the link. And I was like, wait, is this
get on this?
Because you didn't tell me about it for.
No, I wanted to surprise you. I wanted to surprise you. We did have the talks. Okay. I wanted to surprise you. Be like, hey, this is what we're doing. Let's get it.
Dude, I love it. It was a good surprise, man.
Remember, everybody in the comments, please comment, subscribe to Total Apex Media on YouTube for more podcasts like this one. We should have our main show tomorrow night. a lot of the podcasts are kind of in flux right now because of certain outside things, but I think the main show is still going on. The wrestling show is still going on as well.
Yeah, all of our big shows are still going strong right now.
All the big shows. The sports podcast this week, I will make the announcement again, as I made last Friday, will be on Saturday after the 4 through 7 part of the NFL draft, and it will mainly be an NFL draft reaction. So tune into that. It'll be around 7:30 in the evening on Saturday night instead of the normal Friday time slot, just because the second and third round, trying to get the coverage out on the website and get that circulating. That's why we're moving the sports back a day on this week with the NFL draft. But the other time slots are the same for the podcast. The main show will be 8:00 tomorrow night. The wrestling will be at 7 on Thursday night. We got a big wrestling podcast with the WrestleMania 42 recap and a couple other things brought out the Mania, a couple other big storylines from that. Tune in to meet Nick, myself, and Jerry for that. I'm trying to think what else to promote real quick podcast-wise before I get to our socials. I think that's it. I think
you covered all those. Yeah,
I think I covered all of them. So with that being said, follow for more information to go to Total Apex Sports. From this podcast, any information from this podcast, like player reactions, the Wembanyama story, like I mentioned earlier with Justin Rempe, writing the Wembanyama news. Into his story. Check out his story there. And let's go ahead and promote our socials. Jacob, I'm going to start with you.
Y'all can find me at JD Perrine 24 on Instagram. I don't really have any other socials outside of Instagram. Also keep an eye on our site because shortly after this, probably like 20-25 minutes, I'm going to publish a top 5 prospects for the NBA draft. So keep an eye out for that. I'm breaking that right now. I'm still finishing it up. Just catch me on Instagram, JD Perrine 24.
Yep. That's always good and dandy. Shane, go ahead.
Yep. Similar to Jacob, I'm more active on Instagram, so you can catch me on Instagram at 2 Shanes. You can catch me at X, formerly known as Twitter's 2 Shanes. Obviously, writing for Total Apex Fantasy, which will merge, I believe, one day with sports.
One day. That's the plan. Dusty is still working on that plan. We'll have it all merged. We'll all be one happy family.
Yeah,
soon.
Exactly. And just for posterity, it's halftime now. Cleveland is beating Toronto 54 to 48. And
I do love
Brandon
that update.
Ingram is
okay.
Yeah, and Brandon Ingram is 0 for 6. So if you got him for DFS, sorry.
Yeah, that's not gonna get it done in DFS land.
Yeah.
That is not going to get done. And I will also provide the other game that's going on right now. The Knicks and Hawks just started on actual NBC. As part of the NBC part of the doubleheader with a 15-9 Knicks lead.
I do kind of wish we talked about the streaming stuff for NBA because it's been a freaking crap show with the.
I mean, we got plenty of time.
All the other streaming stuff to find it. I'm like, can we just put it on like ESPN or Fox Sports? Like, can we not put it on other things?
Yeah,
like March Madness.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But at the same time, we got plenty of this. This podcast is in its infancy. We'll talk, and that's probably something we'll talk about next week.
I want to talk about that a little bit more.
That'll be something we talk about next week because the streaming aspect of these NBA playoffs is kind of like Prime having to play in the whole play-in tournament, and then the first 2 games is crazy. And then you had to go to ESPN, ABC for a couple others Saturday games, and then it was
and then you had to go back to Prime, or no, you had to go to Peacock. For a couple others.
Yeah,
Peacock.
Yeah.
So it's. The staggering of the streaming aspect is ever changing with it, but with that being said,
that's for a different time.
That's for next week. I'm going to promote my socials here at 30BLS, as you see here on the ticker here under my name, right beside my name. That's my X account. I also have my Instagram as well, like these fellas _BLS32 on Instagram. Check out my Instagram story Andrew did share this podcast on his story. It is basically sharing his story with all three of our handles on there on our Instagram handles. So that is on my Instagram story as well. So it also would just take you back to the playback of this stream. But it's also good to periodically check our Instagrams out for that kind of stuff and everything like that.
And also stories as well.
Yeah, also stories, exactly. Speaking of stories, shorts, we will be doing shorts. I'll be getting the shorts to coordinating the shorts with other people, and Andrew probably give the links and stuff like that. So, and follow me on Ellis Highlight Reel on TikTok for that, and YouTube as well. But yeah, that's it. This is the first episode, the pilot episode, the Limitless Range NBA podcast. Totally Apex Media's Limitless Range NBA podcast. I thank y'all for coming. This has been a fun show with my boys here. And peace out, everybody.
Peace out, guys.
Good stuff. Peace out, man.